There once lived a man who had a kind and pretty wife and a beautiful daughter. Sadly, the man's wife died soon after their daughter was born. A few years later, the man married again. His second wife was not kind and pretty, and she already had 2 daughters who were so selfish, proud, and greedy that they were known as the Ugly Sisters. From the first day they moved in, the Ugly Sisters were cruel and unkind to their stepsister. They made Cinderella clean the house from top to bottom, do all the cooking, and clear out the cinders from the fireplace. One day, the king and queen decided to hold a grand ball. The 2 Ugly Sisters couldn't believe their luck. The very next day, an invitation arrived. On the night of the ball, the Ugly Sisters paraded their new clothes in front of poor Cinderella and asked her to tell them what suited them best. After they'd left, Cinderella sat on the little stool near the fire. Why are my sisters so cruel to me, she thought. I do everything they tell me to do around the house and more. They never give me a kind word or even smile at me. She felt so unhappy she began to cry. Cinderella stepped into the glistening carriage and was whisked through the dark streets until she reached the palace. When she entered the ballroom, everyone stared. They had never seen such a beautiful girl before. The prince fell in love with her as soon as he saw her and danced with her all evening. She was having such a wonderful time, she forgot all about her fairy godmother's warning. All of a sudden, she heard the clock strike 12. Oh no, she thought, I must leave. She tore herself from the prince's arms and rushed out of the ballroom. The prince couldn't understand why this lovely girl had suddenly run away. He searched the palace for her, but couldn't find her anywhere. But in her rush to leave, Cinderella had left behind one of her glass slippers. When the prince found it on the palace steps, he immediately said that he would intend to find and marry the girl whose foot fit the glass slipper. He would visit every house in the land until he had found her. The Ugly Sisters became very excited on the day the prince was going to visit their house. They made sure to wear their best dresses. Just then, Cinderella stepped forward. She had been standing quietly in the shadows and no one had noticed her. May I try? She asked shyly. You? Cried the Ugly Sisters. Of course you can't. Now get back to the kitchen where you belong. Be quiet, ordered the prince. Of course you may, he said, turning to Cinderella, not recognizing her. Cinderella sat down and put the slipper onto her foot. It glided on perfectly. The Ugly Sisters gasped in amazement. I recognize you now, said the prince, smiling. You are the girl I fell in love with at the ball, and you are the girl I'm going to marry. Cinderella replied, I loved you the moment I met you. Cinderella and the prince had a glorious wedding. She forgave her sisters and never had to wash up dirty dishes ever again.